Welcome to our Science of Reading program webinar series, Reading Comprehension in Action. My name is Jen from Amplify, and I'm so happy that you are able to join us today for our webinar, our mCLASS DIBELS 8th edition Educator panel. While we're waiting for everyone to join us, if you will add one of the answers to a question below, we're going to go ahead and read some off to you. Where are you from? What do you teach? And what made you interested in today's webinar? If you want to add that to the chat, we would love to know kind of what everyone teaches and where they're joining from. I'm joining from North Carolina. And we have not had school for 2 days over maybe like I don't even think it's half an inch of snow. So, but it is chilly and we're excited to see where everyone's from here. I'll give everyone a few minutes to get in and get settled. Oh, I have some from Michigan, from St. Louis. Wonderful. I hope everyone has some nice weather. I know some of our educators here today have nice weather where they are, so slightly jealous. All right, I will go ahead and get started with a few helpful tips for our call today in case you are not as familiar with our Zoom webinars. If you'd like to access closed captioning, you can hit the CC button in the bottom tray, and then you can click Show Subtitles. You can also participate throughout our session today by putting comments into the chat box here on Zoom, which you guys are all familiar with. We're excited to see everyone's comments and learn where you are all joining from. And then as a reminder, we're recording this session, so you will also receive that recording and a certificate of attendance shortly via an email from Zoom. So please be on the lookout for that. And then the last feature that we also have on here is at the bottom of your screen, a Q&A box. If you'd like to add any questions, if we have time towards the end of our call to answer any of those questions, we will call those out and hopefully get some helpful answers for you as long as we have time. So we will get started here with some more information about other upcoming webinars. So we have one upcoming webinar now from our series. This is for Amplify ELA. It's an educator panel, and you can hear from some of our Amplify ELA educators who are going to share their experiences using the program. That's on December 11th from 4 to 5 p.m. And then we also have for on-demand watching a handful of amazing webinars ready for you to watch as you have some time. You just need to go to the link and it's amplify.com/fall 2025 SOR demos, and you can select any that you would like to view on demand at the bottom of the page. We have two knowledgeable panel moderators here with us today. Whitney is one of our amazing literacy product specialists here at Amplify. She's been in education for over 20 years as a first grade classroom teacher and a literacy interventionist. And Anna has been an educator for over 30 years and is a former dual language, bilingual teacher and an instructional coach and principal. In addition to her role as a biliteracy and multilingual product specialist here at Amplify, Anna is also the host of the award-winning Beyond My Years podcast from Amplify, where she speaks to seasoned educators to address common classroom challenges. We hope you'll tune in and check it out. And now I'll turn this over to Whitney and Anna to get us started.
Well, let's get started. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Whitney and I are very excited to be here to talk about mCLASS DIBELS 8th edition, but we're mostly excited because we do have our panelists who are also going to be joining us for this particular webinar as well. But before we get to our amazing panelists, and I don't know, Whitney, do you want to say hi before I kind of crank it up and get us started here?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Loving seeing the chat where everybody's joining from. And yes, I share Anna's enthusiasm for getting to the part where you get to hear from educators who are actually using mCLASS in the classroom, in schools. So kick us off, Anna.
All right. So here's how we're going to kick off. As you can tell, I'm excited. There's a lot of excitement around this comprehensive literacy assessment, which is mCLASS DIBELS 8th, which is rooted in the science of reading. So we'll be looking at, I'm going to give you just a small, just like high level overview of the program and how it's going to enable you to identify and also address those early literacy needs effectively and efficiently. This is near and dear to my heart as a former interventionist at a dual language campus. So know that that's where my excitement comes from. So, but let's start here. We're going to take you like to a trip down memory lane. And I don't know how many of you are, you could drop it in the chat, are familiar with a Palm Pilot. I can say that I am blessed to be in my fifth decade of life. I am very familiar with the Palm Pilot. Actually, I miss it. So, want you to know that Amplify has been focused on early literacy for a very long time, since 2001. So, we started on a Dibbles Palm, on a Palm Pilot, having that Dibbles assessment on there. Let's see if anybody remembers this, Whitney. Check that chat and see if anyone is a former Palm Pilot user.
I'm not seeing any. Come on, where are our seasoned educators on
And the
here?
key is seasoned. That doesn't make you old. It makes you seasoned. So it's okay, to let us know if you've ever used a Palm Pilot. Now we've grown as a company, right? We not only provide this assessment, but we also offer a full curriculum for K-8. And what's really more exciting is we also have a Spanish literacy assessment known as mCLASS Lectura. So we have a English literacy assessment with Dibbles 8, and we also have mCLASS Lectura. So we have grown. Now, let me, kind of give you that high level overview here. What is mCLASS? Now, for those of you, and no, there's no exit ticket later, even though I love an exit ticket, Whitney. Um, if you're wondering what mCLASS stands for, it just means mobile classroom. See that pilot allowed, teachers to kind of move around in their classroom. And as a former Dibbles, a person who used Dibbles with her students, that booklet, finding space for that booklet was a nightmare. So everything will be on our platform. But let's start with this. What is mCLASS? It stands for Mobile Classroom. It is an all-in-one screening and instructional tool, which is great because it is also going to give you the continuum of kindergarten to sixth grade. And again, we have this in English and Spanish. What these assessments will have not only will allow you to assess those skills and identify those risks, but it's so much more than that, right, Whitney? They're also going to be able to have instructional recommendations along with progress monitoring, which will allow educators like yourselves to make that adjustment in instruction. So, what I like to always say, and Whitney does as well, this is truly a complete system for data-based decision making. It truly, truly is. Now, you might be wondering, well, prove it, Anna. Show me. Let me show you. Now, what, think if you think of any literacy assessments, what should they offer? They should offer measuring proficiency and also looking at measuring that progress. And we do that with mCLASS, Dibbles 8. So with benchmarking, most of you are very familiar, 3 times a year. That's going to be all your babies. And I say approximately 5 to 7 minutes per student. Typically, that's a kindergarten, first grade, as we're assessing all of those early literacy foundational skills. But not only will you have benchmark capabilities, but you will also have the progress monitoring capability as well. And so, what that's going to provide you, it will be done in the same way for those students' needs and areas of challenge. Best practices is, of course, every 2 to 4 weeks will be only those students that fall below proficiency, approximately 1 to 2 minutes per baby. And yes, I use the word baby. As you can tell, I
I
live
do
in
too.
this. Right? Don't we say babies? Even, I mean, when I was actually a dual language coach for my sixth, seventh, and eighth graders, Whitney, I still call them babies too. So
Yeah.
they're all my babies. Now, what does mCLASS Dibbles cover? It's going to cover all of the foundational skills and more. So it's been validated as a universal and dyslexia screener. Dibbles 8 is a battery of 1 minute measures, 1 minute core measures that are going to help you identify what students are at risk and if they're meeting their goals. So as you can see here, this K6 continuum is going to include the foundational skills of letter naming fluency, phonemic and phonological awareness, nonsense word fluency, word reading fluency, oral reading fluency, and comprehension. Drop in the chat if you have used Dibbles before or have some familiarity with Dibbles, just to kind of
Anna, do
engage.
you know, I heard a statistic the other day that 80% of educators have used Dibbles at some point in their career. Isn't that amazing? That's
It
a lot of
really
teachers
is.
out there.
Well, and that also attests to the fact that Dibbles has been around for a very long time. It is a
Yeah.
research-based assessment. And so because of that, that statistic makes sense. Thank you, Whitney, for adding that. Also know that not only is it foundational skills, but we also have a comprehension measure. If you're familiar with Maze, we also, I see our panelists are excited to kind of share some of those things. And so we also have a reading comprehension measure known as Maze. Now, we also include within our platform mCLASS DIBELS 8, we include additional validated measures specifically designed for identifying reading risks that include dyslexia, right? So these include rapid automized naming, listening comprehension, as well as oral language screener. We also have vocabulary and spelling. And if you're visual like me, having this written out would have kind of had your mind spinning a little bit. So here are those measures. As you can tell, two of them will be teacher administered, the other are online administered. And so what's really great about this is it gives you additional data that you can bring back in your RTI or your MTSS processes to really talk about and discuss those students who are the most vulnerable and need, and you'll have a lot more data to look to. Now with that, we're getting to the good part here. So that was just kind of trajectory where we've come from, what mCLASS is. And also now we want to talk about teacher reports and caregiver letters. What are some reports that will, what I like to call, really maximize the power of mCLASS? And here are a couple of those. So what you're looking at, and as educators, and I know as a former interventionist, I always wanted to determine that class level, like what is the need? What does my overall class look like, right? So here is a report that lives in our platform. This is called the Benchmark Skills Overview Report. And this will give you a classroom-wide review of overall reading performance of your entire class. And teachers use this a lot to determine composite scores, if they've improved, if they've declined, if they've stayed the same. Who loves the color coding? I know that I do. I think all teachers love their color coding, right? So know that that will already be done for you. What's another report that's really beneficial for you? Now, so you have your high level picture, kind of a class summary. Now you want to dive in a little bit deeper and you want to identify which students need that support, right? So there's another report, another table. This is known as the class results table, where you'll be able to look at individual students and look at their performance on each of the subsets or each of the measures, as well as their overall composite. What I really like about this particular report is that it allows you to drill down the students that are the most vulnerable. So in our platform, you have the ability to identify those students who are at risk. As you heard me mention, there are some additional measures that have been validated for reading risk that include dyslexia. So if you are wanting to drill down a little bit more, you are able to do that. If you administer spelling and or RAN, you're able to do that. And who loves a report that actually identifies those students? And you can run a report on who are all of these students, whether it be class level, grade level, even school level, even district level. So this risk indicator icon that you're seeing here will indicate those students who are at higher risk. Now, this is what I like to call the Dibbles 8 booklet. Ugh. And those booklets, I actually was the K 8 interventionists, and I saw 200 kids during the week, and I never knew where to store. I had to like beg my coworkers, "Hey, do you have room in your storage closet for you to house these for me?" That's over. Those days are over. So what you have is the booklet in the platform. So as you're clicking on that student score on a particular measure, you'll be able to open up the student assessment record. Well, they'll give you additional details. You'll have that Dibbles 8 booklet on the platform, no longer having to beg your beg your colleagues for space. Now, here is also what I like to call kind of where the real magic happens. This report, the group instructional report. So you've done the hard work, you've got your class summary, you're able to drill down those students who are most vulnerable. So in the world that I lived in the intervention world, yes, we have the data. Now what do I do with that data, right? So groups already created. I don't know if you remember, Whitney, if you've done this, but I would spend hours on an Excel spreadsheet figuring out formulas and all this stuff to group my babies. And
We
guess
had the
what?
post-it notes everywhere with the scores and the names. Yeah, it's a lot. It's an
Hours
undertaking.
and hours of time,
Yeah.
valuable, to do, but it took a lot of time. And so here's the real magic here. This group instruction report. Groups are already created for you based on that student data. You don't have to do any sorting. You don't have to do any color coding. You don't have to do what I used to do, 3 hours spending time figuring out how to do those formulas. mCLASS handles that part. And honestly, it's so much easier to plan when students are already grouped and that's going to be based on similar skill needs. Additionally, you want to monitor that student growth, right? You want to ensure that students are meeting um, their outcomes are aligning with what their needs are. So now that you've seen how mCLASS can kind of help plan instruction, let's talk about how you can check if that instruction is working, right? So we want to ensure that we're checking that it's working. So that progress monitoring is also important. And I used to spend hours binge watching a really great show with my colored pencils to make my aims. Who remembers that time? Make my little aims with my ruler and my colored pencils. I see Kacey, and she's going to introduce herself in a minute, nodding her head, going, "Y'all remember those days, Anna, right?" This allows educators like yourselves. You want to be able to keep an eye on whether the lessons and that small group work is actually moving the needle. So it's, kind of your way of saying, are we on track before the next benchmark window rolls around? Okay. Now, we also provide an additional component because I am a true believer, and I think all educators are. Caregivers are important, whether it's mom, dad, grandma, aunt, uncle. Our caregivers want to help, but don't always know how to. So not only do we provide family-friendly reports for caregivers within our mCLASS platform, they're called Home Connect letters, which will give them assessment results and analysis, describing those measures and and what how that's related to the skills development. As a former principal and interventionist, I can tell you what the caregivers really wanted to know. How do I help? What activities can I do at home to really help my student, right? So this is super important, and I love the fact that our platform has this. There are activities, an activity section in our Home Connect letter that include recommended activities that are data based and also in very caregiver language. So, a lot of our, caregivers may not know exactly what phonemic awareness is and phonological awareness. So it really breaks it down in caregiver language. So caregivers can use these Home Connect activities to support their child's skill development. Okay. Now, last but not least, we also, oh, here, I'm showing you that now. Home Connect letters with student data driven recommendations. I think I was getting a little ahead of myself and getting super excited about this part. Lastly, what I hope I was able to do, and I hope this was good, Whitney. I know we were like, we want to spend and maximize our time on our panelists. I hope that this short overview allows you to see that mCLASS is a data-driven instructional cycle. So not only is it a universal and dyslexia screener, but it also provides instruction that works together to support educators like yourself. So you're able to gain that capability to monitor every student's path to reading proficiency. So I hope that short time that we spent together laying that foundation was beneficial to you. Drop in the chat and just say yes. But I know what you're here for because I know this is what I'm excited about. And I'm going to pass this over to Whitney because we are so excited that this particular webinar is focused on customer panel, a discussion on folks that are using this at their schools. So I'm going to popcorn it to you, my Whitney Chatterjee, so that you can introduce our amazing panelists today.
Love it. Thank you, Anna, so much for setting the stage, kind of giving us that background information that we need to all move forward, knowing what mCLASS is. And now we can just open up the conversation and get to chat with some really wonderful educators. We got a chance to talk to these ladies a few days ago, and they are both a wealth of knowledge. So you guys, you joined the right webinar. We're so glad you're here to kind of hear their experiences, their stories, and really the way they have taken mCLASS and put it into action in their classrooms and their buildings. So I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves, brag about yourself and your district a little bit, tell us kind of where you're coming from and how mCLASS is fitting into what you're doing, and then we'll jump in with some more specific questions. So Melissa, I'm going to throw it to you so that you can tell us a little bit about your classroom experience.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here and share all about mCLASS and all the Amplify goodness that we've been able to experience in our district. I teach third grade in rural Northern California on the Redwood Coast. We have a beautiful sunny day here. This is our third year using mCLASS and other Amplify products, and we have seen some amazing growth. We're in the middle of benchmarking for middle of the year right now, and I've seen many students go from yellow to green, as we call it. We often refer to the colors, so that would be, the below to proficient. And I was also reviewing my, from that first year we adopted mCLASS and looking at the data. I had 65% of my students were in yellow or red, and this year it's flipped. I have those kiddos that started using Amplify products, mCLASS in first grade, and now I have them as third graders, and they're doing amazing.
That is so wonderful to hear. I'm over here wishing I could throw up emojis. Like that is just music to our teacher ears, right? That's what we hope for all of our babies. So amazing. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your experience with us. Kacey, tell us a little bit about you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I am the dyslexia coordinator for Madison County Schools. We are located in Madison, Mississippi, which is a suburb of Jackson in central Mississippi. This is our second year of using mCLASS district-wide. And we use mCLASS for our K through 2 universal screeners and progress monitoring. But we also use the dyslexia screener because we have a law in the state of Mississippi that all kindergartners need to be screened for dyslexia in the spring, and then the students need to be screened again in the fall of first grade. And we have seen a tremendous amount of success utilizing these screeners for really targeting these students who are at risk early. And not only does it populate at risk for dyslexia, but then we know exactly where their skill deficits lie because mCLASS does such a great job of looking at those stair-step foundational skills. So we can go in and target those deficits and see if the students are still continuing to struggle with the progress monitoring pieces in that they really may be students that have dyslexia. And we do have the capability within our district to move forward with a comprehensive dyslexia evaluation. And so parents and students don't have to wait to see if that is something that is going on from a very early age. We also have the vocabulary and oral language screeners that we utilize. So we really are excited that we're able to use mCLASS with that will give us a multitude of different data points that when we are making decisions for children, that it's very data driven and no longer subjective.
Love that. Absolutely. Well, we're so glad that you're with us as well. So neat that your district has a role for a dyslexia coordinator. I love that. And I know that mCLASS is a really powerful tool helping you do the good work that you do every day. So we're excited to just kind of dive in and have the conversation with you guys, and hear a little bit more about your experience, kind of giving some color and context to the foundation that Anna laid in her kind of opening slides there. And really starting from the beginning and thinking about the efficiency of giving mCLASS DIBELS 8, collecting that data. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that process is like, how it works at your school, and what your thoughts are around it being a teacher administered assessment? Kacey, you want to jump in first?
Sure. So, in the beginning, we were definitely balanced literacy and we were leveling our students, and that was taking a ton of time. It was taking time out of the classroom, and it was very subjective. Our teachers were trying to figure out what to do with these levels and how we are really reaching students to make sure they were reading. The other struggle that we were seeing in that beginning using levels was when we would have these hard conversations with parents when a student was not on level, and parents were saying, how can we get our child to the next level? What can we do? And we really couldn't give them tangible things except for memorize more sight words. And so when we were able to utilize mCLASS, we cut down on the time that it was taking doing those different levels. In the beginning in those kindergarten, it might take a little bit of time, whereas once they start getting older and you're going through, it was taking longer and longer. So now we were able to replace our universal screener and the progress monitoring piece with this one format, teacher led, that we were able to make sure that we were giving instructional time back to our teachers and then also allowing them to show these are the deficits, these are the strengths. And when our teachers were able to talk to the parents using that Home Connect report, they could say these are exactly the things that are needed for your child to reach that green, to reach their benchmark. And so within the classroom, it has been a really good thing for all of our teachers having this shift. And it honestly helped our district shift from balanced literacy to structured literacy, giving them this wonderful assessment piece. And it showed the teachers, wow, these are the skills we need to target within our small group instruction, as well as what can we do whole core tier 1 learning. So I feel like mCLASS has been invaluable for us in helping us to complete that shift.
I love that. And what I'm hearing from you is it's better data in less time. And that isn't that what we all want? I remember I'm right there with you reading those books with students and the running records and all of that, and it was really cumbersome. So the efficiency is huge. Melissa, thoughts as a classroom teacher?
Yes, I love having the quick 1 minute assessments for my students. I know I can set aside when it's benchmark time that 25 minutes in the morning, I can get through my students doing their oral reading fluency, and that the information is compiled and done for me. I still get to hear them read, and we get to take that data and then use the information to guide our next steps. And it's so fast. Like initially, when we first got it, I was really concerned. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a brand new program to use, and I have a lot to learn. And our reading interventionists guided us through. They slowly let us take on more and more assessments until we have the whole series. In third grade, we have We have 4 different assessments that we do. And yeah, it's 5 minutes or so with my students to get all the information we need.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Casey, can I come back to you because you've talked quite a bit about the shift from a balance, like, and you said it very passionately because it was a pretty big shift to make, right, Casey? And so you talked about leveling kids. Any challenges that you had as it related to moving? And because you talked about how it was efficient, but any challenges that you might have had and like the outcomes that came out of those challenges as it related to moving from that balanced literacy approach, Casey, using mCLASS?
Absolutely. So, when you were thinking back into that time of balanced literacy, and we wanted to create these wonderful environments for students to have access to beautiful literature and our cozy nooks and our beautiful book baskets, a lot of our teachers felt very, very strong about almost as a philosophy, those balanced literacy kind of protocols that we had. And so it was very difficult to shift mindsets for our teachers to understand using what the National Reading Panel recommended as best practices for literacy instruction to kind of like, wait, we want kids to enjoy reading. We want to surround them with these wonderful books. What do you mean things have to change? And so using mCLASS and the data that we were seeing was so helpful because it made it tangible and realistic for teachers to see exactly where, when you were doing leveled running record assessments, you could just kind of see the different miscues that they were making. And that was all that it gave you, but it didn't give you how to fix that. And it didn't give you those specific deficit needs on that kind of ladder, stair step of foundational skills. When we were able to roll out the mCLASS initiative, our teachers were better able to understand why students were having specific deficits, and then mCLASS came with those next step instructions, and they were able to say, hey, here's that group like you showed us, right? Here's this wonderful group of all of these kids are having the same struggle, and it was helpful for teachers to say, not just here's a number or a letter level, but this is the deficit, and these are ways that you can help them. And so I really feel like by making it real and making it so easy with the reports to understand not only where they were, but then how to reach them, it's been invaluable for us.
And I really appreciate you sharing that because you mentioned it is kind of a mindset shift, but it's a worthwhile one because I'm hearing skill-based assessment, it is going to take up less instructional time. Um, but again, it's a mind shift, right? But the data is so valuable. And Melissa, can I say before Whitney hits our next question, because I'm always monitoring chat, you're getting some snaps and some kudos there. You've got I can see our teachers being comfortable with taking on assessments slowly, like Melissa mentioned. So thank you so much for sharing that. Already getting folks excited just from hearing, you and Casey in our short time together. So we're going to continue, and Whitney is going to now ask another
Anna, I saw that too.
thought-provoking question, right?
Yeah, I saw that in the chat too, and I thought it's so great. Like the little things that you say, you probably didn't think that that was like the most mind-blowing thought, but just like the gradual release to a classroom teacher. A lot of times we have districts that will do kind of a SWAT team approach where the interventionists and the specialists go in and do the dibbles with all the students. And it sounds like you guys kind of slowly took that and moved it into the classroom. And just that small thought of a way to implement and make this work has an impact. So wonderful to get to hear those little things. And thank you for being so active in the chat. It's really fun to hear your feedback and what's resonating with you. I am thinking we talked a little bit about the DIBELS 8 measures and kind of the efficiency of giving those benchmark assessments. And I'm wondering, Kacey, as a dyslexia coordinator, how are you using some of those additional measures that are really designed to give us kind of a second layer of screening? Is that something you've been able to put into practice?
Yes. So within the law in Mississippi for that stipulates the screening in the spring and screening in the fall for kindergarten and first grade, it also mentions the components that are necessary for a complete screening, and they include spelling and rapid naming. And for our kids that have dyslexia, processing is a big issue, whether it's phonological processing, auditory processing, and the rapid automatized naming is going to give us a look and an insight to see how long does it take from what they have in here to get out this way. And so a lot of times our kids may end up with dyslexia and they'll have what we call a double deficit because they'll populate on rapid naming. And we can see that as an at risk now with Amplify screening before they have to even go through a comprehensive evaluation that looks at the processing speed. Also, that gives teachers another invaluable insight into how long it is going to take those kids for in taking in any type of new information, not just ELA, math, science, social studies. If there is a delay within their processing, they may need things for multiple times. They may need multiple touches in practice, or they may need to have some think time. And that's a really big thing that teachers want to move quickly because we don't have as much time, but you may have a student that it does take a little bit for those wheels to turn for them to be able to give you the answer that they need. And now all of our teachers have that information at their fingertips. Spelling is the same way. Spelling is really going to give us, do they have that alphabetic principle automatic? And is it effective for this individual student? Do they have an overall letter sound connection that not only can they take it in, but they can output it within writing? So, or typing within our assessment. But we really, that is how we can see that it is solidified within their minds with that spelling assessment. Are there mistakes within that vowel pattern? Is it because we live in Mississippi and E and I can get very difficult because it could be a PN or a PN and you don't know which one it is. And so we can also drill down to see specifically where are those deficits. Can they hear like ending blends with MP and the word lamp? And so it gives teachers a ton of information that we can see, not just for children with dyslexia, but so that they can help them in all of their different content areas.
Yeah, I'm just struck by what a wealth of information it is to collect that additional data and being able to go through DIBELS 8 and hear the productive language skills, also tap into the receptive language skills, and just kind of all of that taken together gives you a really powerful picture of every student as a reader. So thank you for sharing that. The additional measures can be overlooked, but they're a really important addition to what you can do with mCLASS. So
And
yeah,
I
Anna,
am
I'll give it to
and
you.
I am sure, there are schools and districts out there that wish they would have a Casey working, to have a dyslexia coordinator and someone dedicated to that specific area. Uh, it's a wow for me. So I'm pretty sure we would, people would probably love to have a Casey at their school. So thanks you for sharing that, Casey. Now, as you kind of saw me go through in the initial part of this webinar, mCLASS does include both benchmarking and also progress monitoring. And so I would love to hear Melissa's insights on how the impact of having that, this consistent quick progress monitoring, how that's been impactful for you on your campus.
Sure. We have set aside every 2 weeks to progress monitor our yellow and red students. It takes, again, 10, 15 minutes max for that time period. We gain a wealth of knowledge. We get the feedback instantaneously and tells us where the deficit is. We can then further change our small groups, our win time, and then look for next steps for instruction. So the program is amazing in that you can click on your student's name and they're grouped. And beyond that, there's dozens of pages of lessons that will focus on the skills that they need to work on. And it's as simple as, clicking, printing, and then presenting it to my small group to focus on those skills that in the progress monitoring is not going up. So many helpful lessons that for all levels, honestly, because you can go back. As I have a third grade teacher, I have access to, the kindergarten, first grade levels as well. And if my students are needing that support, I can go back and get that going too. So very helpful. Progress monitoring gives a lot of information quickly. And I know when we've had conferences with parents, it's so helpful to show them the growth that they're making every 2 weeks instead of being like, this is what they had at the beginning of the year. And, here we are 3.5 months later, but showing that those charts that show the growth, you can't really argue with the data.
Well, and you can't really argue with consistent data that,
Yeah.
and I think that is more like the most important thing, that consistent data. And I know we've got Michelle, you're active. I love Michelle Carton here on our chat, is really engaging with the comments that you're making. And I think those are some useful tips, Michelle, how DIBELS 8 testing, NPM, that progress monitoring monthly can help you kind of determine the needs of students and what adjustments you can make in core. So thank you so much, Melissa, for just giving us really great tips that really can be helpful for our educators on the webinar.
And that kind of leads beautifully into my favorite part of mCLASS. I always talk about it as sort of like the magic of mCLASS, and that is those instructional next steps. So, Michelle, from the chat, to your point, like we've got all this great data, we're progress monitoring, we're doing all the things that we need to be doing as teachers, collecting the information, but then how do we use that and leverage that to really inform our instruction? And mCLASS actually takes that step with you, which is something I never had as a teacher or an interventionist. We'd collect the data and then we would work to figure out, okay, what does this mean? What do we do? What resources do we pull in? So, Melissa and Kacey, I would love to hear from you guys how you're using those instructional next steps that are embedded and really connected right to each student's data. Is that something you've been able to implement consistently, and how's that going? Melissa, let me throw it to you, and then Kacey, I want to hear from you as well.
Yeah, we are able to do that consistently because we have our daily win group time. So what I need time. So our students are grouped in similar levels and even in similar skills deficits. So I can go on to my mCLASS dashboard. I can see the students and who are grouped with similar skills. And then I can find the lessons sequentially. I can print them out. Can get my whole week's worth of lessons ready to go. And then when we have our win time, I just here we're ready to go. Like I can trust that the information I'm presenting to them is helpful and targeted. For instance, I could have a students that need additional support in like reading words with simpler patterns fluently. I can quickly see lessons for that and just have it ready for them to go. And even as a whole class reteach moment, if I see as a overall we're struggling on something, I can go into the dashboard, find a quick lesson on that and present it.
And do you find that those lessons are pretty user-friendly, like a light lift for you as a teacher, or are you doing a lot of planning and preparation to use those?
It's a light lift. Sometimes you'll have to do a little bit of cutting, to get cards ready. But generally, it's, you have your whiteboards and you have your markers, and it's that explicit instruction coming from me that's really going to help them.
We're all about a light lift, Whitney, right? Light
It
lift.
brings me joy to be able to share about mCLASS because it's a light lift, or our other programs, Boost Reading, very light lift, because I know teachers, you don't have any room on your plate for new things.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Kacey, thoughts?
Yes, so we have been able to this year roll out those instructional next steps for tier two within our for our teachers to be able to deliver their interventions, and they're not having to pull from just all different places or different programs or on the internet or whatever it is that they think that they need. mCLASS has it for you, and we are very fortunate within our district that we have a literacy specialist in every building. And so this year, during our back to school training for our literacy specialists, we were able to work with them to talk through how to utilize those instructional next steps, how to read the data to see where that first deficit is, to make sure that you're kind of going backwards to kind of see where that and see where that group falls within what Amplify gives the teacher. So they can sit down with their teachers in their building, look at that what is it, the class results table to kind of see specifically which lessons to pull from. And we have some that have printed off all of those instructional next steps, and they have a filing cabinet full of lessons so that the teachers can come and pull from them and say, this is exactly what's going on with my students. And then they'll pull the entire binder that is on phonemic segmentation fluency and go within those lessons that Amplify has already curated, which ones might be specific for this group of students and this need in this classroom. It has made a huge difference, and we have seen incredible growth within our progress monitoring, especially with those tier two meetings with parents, and to see if we can keep them out of having to even go to tier three with that even more intensive instruction to be able to keep them as close to tier one as possible. And they just might need that as well. The other thing is, again, moving back to that shift from balanced literacy to structured literacy. The centers, might be a little bit where teachers are having to pull different things and what are they going to do during that time with the students. And we were just kind of reading leveled books, right? Well, now during our small group instruction time, this was another way that mCLASS was able to help us shift that balance because we were able to tell teachers, here it is, here's your skill. When they're like, I don't know how to teach a skill. What skill do I choose? What am I supposed to be doing? I thought we were just reading leveled books. Now we say, here it is. It's right there. It's for you. Like Melissa said, it's the light lift. It might be a little cutting, but the preparation was minimal compared to what they may have had to do to reach those deficits before. So we have been really excited about utilizing that for tier two to really help teachers have something in place that they don't have to look for.
I want to just echo something that you said that I absolutely love. I wrote it down. You said we want to keep our tier two students as close to tier one as we can. And I feel like the way to do that is to be very precise and targeted with your instruction for those tier two students. And that's what mCLASS allows teachers to do because it actually gives you the mechanism to collect the data, and then it gives you those next steps. So keeping those students as close to tier one as possible. I think that's a really powerful way to kind of say it and frame it. So thank you both so much for sharing kind of on those instructional next steps.
And with that, we're going to stick with the light lift, the light lift like component here, as Melissa mentioned, easy to use. So now what else is easy to use is I feel as a former interventionist as well, and I did not have mCLASS, it's a very user-friendly dashboard. So it'll help you. And again, this is kind of light lift. I remember as a principal too, if I'm going to add on something, I'm going to take away something. So if you're adding mCLASS, right? It is a very user-friendly dashboard. And Kacey, can you share and talk about this user-friendly dashboard and how that's, enabled folks like you and folks on your campus to make data-informed decisions?
Absolutely. I mean, the reports that you can pull are invaluable. And for me at a district level, there are so many different reports that I can look at. I can look at grades across district. I can drill down all the way from that high, from that 30,000 foot view, but also down into the different classrooms too. And so we can help schools and administrators with their decisions if they're struggling on, what do I target or what's going on, or let's look at grade one. And then if we have a teacher that might need a little bit of support within their building, we can utilize that at the district level to help provide that guidance. And we can also look at our numbers of how our students might be in the red and where are they, what tier are they, how much support is being given, so that we're able to really make those decisions not on a subjective level, not like I think this child needs to be in tier, but we can really say, look at this data and how can we help to support that. And then again, for me, with pulling those dyslexia pieces, um, you know, uh, mCLASS already provides the little exclamation point of the students that are at risk for dyslexia. So it has made my job, I have to do reports for the state, right? And it has made my job so much easier because I can directly pull that report. That Amplify has made it super easy to go ahead and make my reports for the state. And it wasn't me like doing, like you said, pulling Excel spreadsheets and calculations and putting it all together. It has been really there. And we can look at across the district, nonsense word fluency. How are our students doing in first grade? What are the tier one things that we may need to target? Not just our tier two and tier three and special education population, but our core instruction. Are we meeting the needs? Because the different building administrators may not have that access. So I have really loved all of the different types of reports that we can pull, and we can also make sure that our students are meeting their needs in their instructional screening window, right? We can send those little reminders to say, hey, the window is closing in a week. Please make sure that you have completed your universal screening, because sometimes we need those little reminders. So it even has that. It has how many people in the building, how many students have taken the assessment. So there's a lot in there that you can kind of play with to help our buildings really make great decisions.
It's a
So,
good call out for any principals on the line.
and
Like
we
you
do
do
have
have
folks
that
that
fidelity.
have been, and I think we had folks asking about that as an admin, how can I support? So know that admin, there is admin reporting there as well. So you'll also be supported so that you can support your teachers.
So, you guys, we have about 5 minutes left, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to let you brag on your students, your teachers, your schools, whatever. Share some stories of growth. Tell us about the impact, because we've talked a lot about it's an efficient assessment. We get great data. We have grouping and instructional recommendations. But tell us, like, real deal, what growth are you seeing? Melissa, maybe we'll start with you and then jump to Kacey just for a couple minutes.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of growth this trimester in the comprehension aspect using Maze. My students, quite a few of my students were in the yellow at the beginning of the year. And, we progress monitor. I progress monitor the Maze a couple times before we do our report cards. And we're finishing our middle of the year assessments now. And I have none in yellow. I have so many in green and blue. I still have some reds, but I was just so happy to see that those kiddos on that cusp there made that jump into the green. It makes me so proud.
Yeah.
And also in terms of like progress monitoring, we have conferences early November, and it's between that beginning of the year and the middle of the year time. So having that data from progress monitoring to show parents, because if you present beginning of the year and their student is lower than they would have expected, it can kind of create a little bit of, they might be concerned, but then having that data from progress monitoring to be like, oh no, they started off slow. We haven't built that relationship yet. They're gearing up, and you can see that their data, they're going up. They're in the green on progress monitoring. It's very reassuring to parents too. We also always provide the home connect during the report cards and conferences. And I want to just say the user friendliness of it, so parents can look and see like, oh, green, green, oh, yellow. This is something that we can, keep working on. Is great. And the feedback from parents has been really positive as well, to have all that information and ideas to support their learners.
Absolutely. What a celebration that your
Yes.
class is doing so well.
Right.
What an enormous impact to have. You're keeping them close to tier one.
The
Kacey,
power of mCLASS, right, Whitney? The power of mCLASS.
yes. Yes. Kacey, just a quick minute. Any thoughts from you?
Again, on the dyslexia side, it has been so wonderful to go ahead and have that dyslexia screening and see who's at risk. And then we target those deficit areas and we have seen growth. And so we don't always have to label a kid either. If this is a kid that they may just have deficit areas, but they populated at risk, we can target their specific needs. We've seen the growth, and then they won't need to go through that comprehensive evaluation process because we will have met them where they are and gotten those deficits. So the growth there has been outstanding. So we're seeing the right children be, populating for dyslexia, the ones that we need to go ahead and put through, but then we're also been able to keep a lot of those ones, again, as close to tier one as possible without having to put them through this process that they may end up not having a learning disability at the end because we were able to target their specific needs early on. So we really have enjoyed using this as our dyslexia screener.
Fantastic. Thank you guys for sharing. And we're kind of coming to the end of our time together. I knew it would fly by. I feel like there's been a wealth of knowledge shared and just the real experiences of teachers in the classrooms and the schools. So thank you for lending us all of your wisdom and your experience with mCLASS.
Well, and it warms my heart because if you are joining this webinar, yes, you got information about mCLASS, but to get firsthand information from educators and folks like Kacey, who's a dyslexia coordinator, and folks like Melissa who are working with students. And I love what we talked about is we want to see growth, and we do. Isn't that what this is all about? Is to see the growth. So thank you so much. I mean, my heart is jumping out of my chest, and I had such a great time being part of this webinar and having you share all of your great experiences. And so Jen is back, and we're gonna like wrap this up with something really fun, huh, Jen?
Yes, yes. So thank you so much to all of our guests for sharing their wisdom with us. We really appreciate it. As previous educators and so many in the attendance today who are going through this right now. We know this is hopefully helpful to you. We want you to walk away knowing so much about mCLASS after this call. As I mentioned earlier in the webinar, Anna is the host of our Beyond My Years podcast here at Amplify, which we're so excited about. And we have a little short clip of a recent Beyond My Years podcast episode, which features researcher and author Dr. Angela Duckworth. In this episode, she shares some insights from her new landmark study, and she offers teacher tips to boost student focus and regulation, self-regulation. And if you love teacher stories and you love practical tips for the classroom, you should definitely subscribe to this podcast. I'm going to have Anna play that video.
When I started out as a psychologist, and when you even say things like motivation, I study effort and motivation, you immediately think of what's inside the head, right? Oh, you must study growth mindset. I do. Absolutely. I study habits. Right. But in the last 10 years, I have become increasingly interested in what's outside the head of somebody who is doing great.
And what an honor to have Dr. Angela Duckworth, the, best-selling author of Grit, on our podcast and sharing all of her wisdom. So it was exciting to do.
What an honor, and to have you with us here today. We're so excited. If any of you would like to subscribe, you can use this QR code right here. Just pull up your phone and scan that QR code and go ahead and hop on and join us there so that you can listen to all the great episodes. And I wanted to just say a special thank you to all of the people in the audience today. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you're able to leave this session knowing so much more about mCLASS, and we hope that this was helpful to you. Have a great day, everyone.